down, you bastard!
Brought to you by supporters who probably have better taste than this schmuck.
Fans Toys had already hit their stride with their first triple changer Astro Train. They already knew how to do triple changes. They already had the groundwork done, so from here, they only had to do better with the next one. And Blitzwing was a chance to do that. He is a much more complex design, he's much more difficult to do, but they can also reap more rewards. They can also be far more experimental. And to an extent, they did do that. Well, they almost did that. Hot off the heels of Astro Train, of course they were going to do Blitzwing next, with a very cartoon-accurate offering. But that's not right. Hang on, let me fix that for a second. Sorry about that, I forgot we weren't doing Legacy Blitzwing for a second there. Anyway, MechFans Toys Blitzwing is very cartoon-accurate. He's very wide like the cartoon, the proportions are all there. The only real difference is that the front uses the thruster feet from the G1 toy, not the back where the nose cone's supposed to be, based on the G1 cartoon, where they had that mistransformed thing and it was backwards and it did its thing. It's got most of the simplicities where the entire side has no paint on it, it's just plain grey, which is my sort of biggest gripe with this. I really wish they painted the sides here. But everything else works really well. He's very greeble, just as a Blitzwing should be. Got some nice paint on the top here, which helps break things up. Gunmetal on the back there, and lovely paint on the turret and the sides. This bit under the turret looks a little bit underdone, but I mean, that's just one small part. You can actually shimmy the turret as well, so if you want it further forward, you can have that, or you can move it back. Nice little options, whatever you kind of feel like. Rotates reasonably well as well, which given some other tanks we'll be discussing later in the marathon, way later, it's a nice touch. Rotating turrets on Legends tanks is always hit or miss, and it's nice to know that on a triple changer all things, they did pretty well. This time they actually have fake wheels, I guess because there's actual room to put them. I know that might piss a lot of people off, oh no, it should be real treads, but I mean, it's a Legends figure, what you really gonna do? A Legends figure and a triple changer, it's very difficult. The fact they've been able to do this as good as they have is really commendable, and if that's not good enough, you also have options. I've always liked the thrusters at the front, sort of like the G1 toy, and that is entirely possible. This is usually how I display him, just maybe with the turret a little bit forwards, and that works too. Also means you got the nice gunmetal up the front. It's an option, you don't have to do it if you don't want to, but I really like to do it, and it works very well. Again, my biggest gripe is just that there is no real paint on the treads on the side. I just really wish there'd been some gunmetal or some silver. I mean, I can go in with a Sharpie if I really want to, but you know, I'm just critiquing this out of the box, and out of the box, it's still very good. The paneling works very well, it's not messy, it holds together very well, it's not weirdly proportioned. It's just a really nice tank mode. Now with Blitzwing, he's the only figure that I've actually kept the accessories for, so I can actually show you the weapon storage, and it's fine, I guess. They're just sort of sitting on the top there, it's nothing special. I wish I could tell you more about it, but it's just sitting there. What can you do? Now, for the comparisons with the official versions, I kind of want to discuss them more in detail for this particular video. Simply because there are points that people bring up that sort of make sense, but sort of don't. Out of the MechFans Toys trio, Blitzwing more than anyone else is brought up in comparison to the Hasbro versions, specifically in what people say they could have done better. When the MechFans Toys version came out, the biggest point of comparison was the Times Return version, because that's what everyone was comparing at the time. Mostly saying, oh, why would you get the Times Return version? You can just get the MechFans Toys version. But then those complaints resurfaced again when the Legacy version came out and people were being very specific about the accuracy. But I don't think it's really fair. Do I think this is a better figure than Times Return? To a point, but there's also more it can do. I don't really like comparing third party to official figures. Aside from just personal enjoyment where I just say, oh, I prefer this one, I prefer this one. There's just not much of a point because they're under different circumstances. With Times Return Blitzwing, it's a $50 figure that has to be a certain size and has to adhere to play value, it has to adhere to safety reasons, it has to deal with a lot of mass manufacturing things. This isn't affected by that, and it is a lot smaller, and it's more expensive as well by 15 bucks. 65 compared to 50, and it's a Legends figure. So of course it's able to do more, of course it's able to achieve more. Now as for which one I prefer, although I think this one technically is a little bit worse than this, I do prefer the Titan's Return version. That transformation just does it for me. Now the Legacy version is not a victim of what it can do and what it can't do, it's just a victim of the choices the designers made. The accuracy is very purposeful. They well, pretty much went accurate to a fault. And that's what people asked for. People asked for a lot of that accuracy, and at that point, what do you really expect? You ask for excessive accuracy, and then you get excessive accuracy. So all the decisions that this Blitzwing make sense. And for that reason alone, I don't think these two are comparable. If you prefer one or the other, go right ahead. You're gonna be probably happy with either. The only thing is, don't get the Iron Factory version. As you can see, it's just not that great. I love this thing, but it's got issues. Anyway, size-wise, he's roughly 10 centimeters by 6.7 centimeters by 3 centimeters. And for ye old comparisons, here he is next to a standard Legion figure, a standard core class figure, still substantially bigger, a standard modern Micromaster, a standard modern Minicon, a not so standard Lego minifigure, and crumbs. I'm leaving this in stock configuration, make the transformation a little bit easier to follow, but much like Astro Train, the transformation is very G1 simple, although there are a few slight differences. First thing you want to do is bring up these panels here, and untab the wings from the side here. You basically bring that up, and then the whole thing comes apart. And you'll notice they actually do the DX9 thing, where the head's on the side. Not sure why that's a specifically third-party Blitzwing thing. It seems to happen a bit. You bring down this panel here, and bring out the nose cone. Then you can bring this down. It's on both a hinge and a ball joint, but that goes there so that it fits in there. The nose cone will fold all the way out. You can basically flip the thing upside down, and that thing will all sit together. There we go, there we go. Eventually it'll lock in solidly. These bits peg onto the sides like so. You can leave these up or rotate them down depending on your preference. I'll just leave them down. These bits rotate upwards and onto the side here. They do actually stay like that for tank mode, but they usually untab when you're transforming between the two vehicles. So it's a bit of annoyance, but it's fine. You bring up the two spikes from here, two fins at the back. These side panels rotate inwards, and then the double hinge rotates that inwards, so we're not left with any of the treads getting in the way. And then really, you just make sure everything's locked together, and we're basically good. We have Blitzwing. I guess you can move the turret back if you want to, but really, it works fine. It's a lovely little Blitzwing. And here Blitzwing is, and he looks really bloody good for the size. Like, they pulled this off exceptionally well. There's not a lot of kibble, not a lot of jank. It just works really well, and it looks resplendent with the amount of paint. There is a lot of paint on this thing. Wonderful metallic blue paint on the nose cone. I really wish they'd use that on mainline deluxes instead of that baby blue, but you know, you can't really have everything. All the robot mode paint on the front here, the wonderful yellow on the wings. Again, MechFans Toys is doing yellow very well, which considering how difficult it is to get the color right, that's commendable. Silver on the fins and gunmetal on the guns on the side here. It just works. It's just Blitzwing. It's not something I can really talk about why it works or why it doesn't or go into the nitty gritty. It just works. It's simple but effective, and I love it for that. If I really had to complain about one thing, this kind of section at the front here, because of the way the torso works, angles out, and it can look a little bit bulbous. But a Legends figure, what the fuck are you gonna do with that? Everything else just works so well. It's even super clean on the underside. Blitzwings aren't usually this clean. I've seen complaints about how the treads work and how they can be fiddly, but I've not had that experience at all. It's just so simple, so effective, doesn't have any gaps, it just functions. The fact that we're able to get this to work when so many other third parties fail, it's really commendable. Now, if you want, you can actually bring this forwards and bring in the turret, but that's mostly for robot mode, and it does make it a bit difficult to stand. Interesting thing, there's actually some automorph. When you bring it down, it actually pushes the barrel back. And yeah, you got the barrel at the bottom there, but I mean, that's so minor, and that was the thing with the G1 toy anyway. I don't excuse everything because the G1 toy did it, but it does explain why some things are the way they are. And I don't think this is too egregious, so I think that explanation works well enough. Toy reviewing isn't a checklist of things that you go through. It's very context-based. In fact, I think criticism in general is very context-based, at least for me. Nah, some things are good, some things are bad. It just really depends. Now, is it the best Blitzwing jet in my collection? Almost. I think I prefer this one just due to the mechanical detail and the coloring on it. But on a technical level, I'd say this is better. Of course, this is ignoring DX9 but still. I mean, the legacy version is what it is. It's got its issues. I still really like this one, but it's definitely got its issues. And Iron Factory, yeah, we don't talk about Iron Factory. This was just even bad for the time, I'd argue. But again, I still love all four of these. Anyway, size-wise, this is actually really big with a 13.1 centimeter length and a 12.8 centimeter wingspan. That's big. And for comparisons, standard Legion, standard Legends, standard Core Class, standard Micromaster, standard Minicon, bootleg, mascot. Transformation to robot mode is a little more complex than you'd expect, but still works rather well. Open up this section here, bring the head platform into its robot mode configuration, get the nose cone around into place, and that will allow you to get this to work. There's actually a peg there and a slot there, and that's how that'll peg together nice and solidly. Bring the turret up to the top, and that'll sit on there and peg in there, locking it in place, and you can bring down the part there. Bring these sections up, take the guns and rotate them into the sides of the wings. They'll actually clip into place like so. Nice and easy. But we're not going to do anything yet. These are just out of the way so we can get the legs out of the way. You do have to come around to the sides to get that panel out of the way, because then that'll allow you to untab this and bring the whole leg out. And then much like Astro Train, it closes and closes again. It's the kind of transformation that on a lesser transformer would be very difficult and annoying, but here it works really well. Come on, stay in place. There we go. Thrusters move forwards and then turn into feet. Nice use of mass. You can also bring these forward for screen accuracy, but I tend not to. I just like to leave them nice and, you know, cuddled up in there. Personally, I prefer that. You actually have to rotate the thighs into place separately due to clearance issues. If you don't do this, then it won't actually function. They're there so that everything sits flush in the vehicle mode. Now that that's done, you can actually bring these all the way around to the back. Now what you want to do is bring these sections up. Then you bring the arm sections down like that. Then you can rotate it all into place at the back there, using its double rotation to sit flush with that, and then that sits flush with that. And if these have fallen out or you haven't already, these actually just peg into the back to make the nice wings. Last but not least, you basically open up this cavity, rotate the fist around, and close it back up. Nice and easy. Not too complex, not too simple, just really good for the price point. Weirdly enough, I think the robot mode for Blitzwing is actually the weakest. It is pretty good, but there's a bit of jank in a few areas that just wasn't present on Astro Train. It's clear that the two vehicle modes were the priorities, and they kind of just fudged the robot out of it, which does happen sometimes. But that doesn't mean he's bad, it just means he's compromised. For instance, the kibble on the side here, it does fold away really well, but by the same token, it does look a bit out of place. And also, the arms are a bit spindly, and the way they peg in is a bit annoying. It's on this hinge that sticks out here and then goes around to the back there. It's not hateful in its engineering, but it does lead to some oddities with proportions. I do think the ball joints on the shoulders here do look a bit better than the simple flap one that they use on the Legacy version, but it does lead to some limited articulation, especially going forwards. But then again, given the backpack, Blitzwing has always had sort of limited shoulder articulation. Head sculpt does look lovely though. It has everything you could want from it. It's not proportioned weird. It's a nice little head sculpt. It's articulated very well too. You've got a nice ball jointed head, ball jointed shoulders that again do kind of get stuck with this part here. And if you're too rough, it does fall off. It's not the best tolerance there, but you got nice bicep swivels, although you do have to hold that in place because of the tolerances. 90-degree elbow, no wrist though. The waist swivel is a bit annoying because it's separate from this panel here. I kind of feel that could have been cut and put on the bottom there. So the waist swivel is basically useless. Thigh swivel that works fine, then a 90-degree knee, and a separate knee swivel, which can get a bit annoying for certain poses, but it's not too bad. And then you've got ankles here, and they also move forward and back due to the transformation. Works alright. I do really like the way the feet work from the thrusters. That's a really good way to use existing mass. And overall, I do think that it is a pretty good Blitzwing. It is painted very well. There's so much paint on the torso, and all the paint on the wings still comes through as well. Would have been nice for some on the legs, but I do kind of get not wanting to waste the budget too much. Mech Fans Toys is a very budget line for Legends collecting, so I do get wanting to pull things back. And the fact they're able to do a Blitzwing this good at this price point, I mean, $65, that's pretty affordable. He's even really clean at the back. I mean, there's not a lot of kibble, it's just Blitzwing's back. I realize that it's a pretty established conversion scheme and they've kind of figured out a lot of it over the years, but still, they have done remarkably well. It's just that this is the weakest of the three modes. The vehicle modes on this thing were absolutely lovely, and this, it's just not as good. The accessories are nice though. I do appreciate the accessories, and I appreciate that I haven't lost the accessories. I appreciate the amount of effort they put in. It's just robot mode wise, this might be the weakest. And for comparisons with the Hasbro versions, I think he might be my least favorite. I know I've done this again for Astro Train, but in this instance, different reasoning. For starters, this one has much more naturalistic articulation. As much as these shoulders look better, these allow for a lot more motion, and the waist doesn't have any issues there. But then when it comes to personal detail preferences, the Titan's Return just takes it for me. I just love the way this looks a lot more. I know it's got the stickers on it for now, but one day I will get toy hacks. But even then, it's still pretty good. None of them are bad. It's just, once again, much like with Astro Train, I just prefer the two Hasbro versions. At least when it comes to robot mode, that's just my thing. Anyway, to finish off, size-wise, he is 11 centimeters by 14 centimeters. And for comparisons, here he is next to a standard Legion figure, a standard Core Class figure, a standard modern Micromaster, a standard modern Minicon, a not-so-standard Lego minifigure, and crumbs. This figure does attempt way more. It does push the envelope a lot more. But is it better? That's sort of hard to say. It does get close, but there are certain areas where it falls flat. The vehicle modes on this thing are absolutely stellar. They just demolish the competition with the other figures. But it's that robot mode where it just falls a little bit short. I know usually I love the experimental, the weird, the wacky, but sometimes less can be more. And I feel that was the case with Astro Train. He was a simpler beast, but he just pulled off everything exceptionally. And Blitzwing doesn't quite hit those highs. It does in the vehicle modes, but with the engineering in the robot mode, not so much. So as far as the overall experience is concerned, I've just gotta give it to Astro Train. Not to say this is a bad figure, it is really good. Possibly even better for some people compared to the official versions. Not for me, but I can see why a lot of people would say that. If you're getting this set, or if you just want a Legend scale Blitzwing, he's gonna do you just fine. But if you want the best Blitzwing in existence, irrespective of price point, irrespective of scale, it's not gonna be that. And that's okay, not every figure has to be. This represents the team quite well. At least better than tomorrow's topic. But for now, they did alright. But speaking of tomorrow, unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. Not everything can be brilliant. Every trio has to have the black sheep, and unfortunately with this trio, they ended on a bit of a sour note. To take a look at that, see y'all tomorrow!